Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on building organizational resilience through looking at trust at work. I really appreciate everybody coming to this workshop or attending this workshop. I know many of you are, maybe like myself, suffering from a bit of web fatigue and team meeting fatigue and general had enough of it all fatigue. So I really appreciate all of us being here to share some thoughts around building trust at work. Just some housekeeping. If I could ask that you please put your mics on mute and keep them on mute. And then for any comments, there's a Q&A section on the right-hand side of the screen. So if you have a comment during the webinar, or if you've got a question that you'd like to post, please put it on that side. I've got Londiwe and Justine today in the background, our production ladies from BDO, helping me out. So they will look at the questions and also post those through. My name is Nadine Rix. I'm the National Risk Officer for BDO in South Africa. And to start off today, let's quickly just recap on what we're going to be talking about, looking firstly at the resilience framework. So resilience, as we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks, is the ability to adapt or adjust, be flexible in the face of adversity. Now, many of us obviously have been facing a lot of adversity in the last couple of months, and this could be due to any kind of trauma, tragedy, threats, stress, our families, relationships, health problems, business problems. And when we talk about resilience, we talk about our ability to kind of move through that and adapt and adjust accordingly. We've already in the previous weeks looked at data and systems and processes. So today I'd like to focus a little bit on the element of trust, and more importantly, what is the role of trust in building resilient organizations and how do we create that in our organizations? So firstly, when we look at trust, it's become a very powerful organizational asset. It brings kind of a sense of confidence and a belief in organization, which in turn then enables a lot of things to happen. It's kind of the vital foundation for any business's long-term survival and success. It's become an increasingly competitive landscape in the last few months. Our customers, investors, employees are bombarded with choice. They're expecting more from businesses, and building a trusted organization and brand is really more important than ever. New technologies and business models are creating a lot of pressure around how organizations can create growth. So this is one of the first elements when we look at trust, or let's say the benefits of having a trustworthy organization, is that element of growth. Oh, excuse me. So as an example, I know I might be stepping on a few toes here, but I'm going to look in South Africa specifically at our electricity provider called Eskom. So for those of you joining from outside of South Africa, Eskom is our government parastatal that's responsible for providing power supply to homes and businesses in South Africa. And in the last couple of years, we've had an increase of what they call load shedding, where the power goes off for a couple of hours and then it goes on again. And it's very disruptive, obviously, to business, and it's very disruptive to homes because power will just go off at any given time. And it will come on again, let's say in 2-3 hours. And the schedules that come out are also very, they're not always accurate. So they're not always accurately to rely on. And I find that in the case of Eskom, we might say, well, they are the power supplier. So what does growth have to do with them? I think the market has definitely lost trust in Eskom. So when we look at their ability to grow, it's become limited because their customers don't trust them anymore. Their consumers and the public don't trust them anymore. When we look at public enterprise, we then say, well, what does it matter? Well, it matters because there are a lot of new power suppliers that are coming onto the market. There's wind power, there's solar. Failure to gain the trust in the market has consequences for launching any kind of new product. So if Eskom was, for example, trying to come out with a new product in solar or in wind, the market wouldn't really trust them to say, well, you haven't even been able to provide for us what you said you were going to. So in order to launch a new product or to innovate, it's very difficult if there's not trust to begin with. Whereby if a company has trust and the customers do trust them, then it's very easy for them to launch new products because people are already familiar with their brand. Trust enables people and organizations to innovate and co-create. They can take risks and experiment because the trust from the external environment is already there. Typically then what we also look at is our stakeholders. So the more committed to they are more likely to endorse and promote organizations that they trust. Stakeholders show a preference to purchase, invest, work in and partner with organizations that have a reputation for trust. We all know that we're going to put our money in something that we trust and not something that, you know, has failed us many times. The other thing that's also a huge benefit to trust is customers are willing to pay a premium. They're willing to wait for that new iPhone to come out in the market and they're willing to pay the premium for it. Trust affords influence. So customers try new products and services, employees follow leaders and regulators, and the public accept information on face value when it comes from a trusted source. So these are just some of the benefits when we look at being trustworthy in an organization that we can then gain from. Now, where does resilience come in? Trust is crucial to organizational agility, transformation, and resilience. It helps organizations to embrace sometimes and navigate disruption, whether it be from technology or economic shocks, or all of us that have recently been through, you know, the pandemic or still suffering through it. Being a trustworthy organization or having trust within the organization brings our people together so they can innovate and think and be creative because they trust each other. We also look then at the ability to share knowledge. If I trust my co-workers and I trust my manager and I lead my leader, I'm going to share knowledge as it comes to me very quickly. It facilitates a higher quality of knowledge exchange. They're better at problem solving, decision making, and overall performance. Sustained trustworthiness conduct also brings reputational advantages. It kind of underpins that social license to operate. If a business is seen as trustworthy and the employees trust their managers and their leaders, they kind of feel like they'll work harder for them and suffer through things with them. Reputation for trust can obviously be a source of sustainable competitive advantage, and that's something that's really, really difficult for competitors to imitate. How do you can launch a similar product in the market, but it's very difficult to imitate trust as a competitive advantage. So when we look at organizational trust, the question then becomes, where do we start? In order to make things easy, I've divided organizational trust into two areas. The first one is internal. This is where we're going to look at it a little bit more detail and how do you build trust in your teams and in your people that you use in the business. And the other one is then external trust. So external trust deals with how the outside world views the organization. And here research has shown us that, you know, our customers, our shareholders, our suppliers, banks, and regulators typically look for a couple of things. They look for things like common values. So does the organization share my values and beliefs? We look at aligned interests. So does the organizational interest coincide with my interest, or does it conflict with them? Care has become quite important in recent months. So does the organization care about customer welfare, about community welfare? At a minimum here, this means doing no harm. So more broadly, it can involve having a positive orientation towards stakeholders that goes beyond a profit motive. So really making people feel that you care about them, they care about their customers and their community. Competence is the organization capable of delivering on commitments. I come back to Eskom here to say, you know, we're going to provide you with power. No, they have been unable to do so. So then I'm going to go look somewhere else. When we look at competence, it's also the collective knowledge, skills, and competencies that enable the organization to function reliably. It effectively delivers products and services to meet goals and responsibility. And that's very specific to acquiring trust, is doing what I'm saying I'm going to do, delivering on that. Predictability and integrity here. We look at a consistent adherence to commonly accepted ethical principles, moral values, things like honesty, fairness, responsibility, and my actions that I take as an organization is in line with those things. Integrity is also fairly well seen by the outside public. And then communication is, does this organization communicate with us on a regular basis? Do we understand what they're saying? Do we understand what they're about? My personal favorite for me when it comes to trust, and the best way to bring external trust is through consistency over time. I think it's incredibly important that organizations do the same thing, the same quality standard, consistently, and over time that trust is then built. A reputation for trust demands the creation and maintenance of an organizational infrastructure designed to reliably produce trustworthy conduct. So that means that we can't just have one or two people in the organization delivering consistently. We need everybody in the organization to deliver consistently. Typically, if you think of, if you walk into a bank and you get bad customer service from a particular teller, you're not necessarily going to tell other people, oh, Nadine from Standard Bank was really bad at the service that I got. You typically go, the service from Standard Bank is really bad. Not that Standard Bank has bad service, but that's just an example. So we tend to see the organization as a whole. And that brings me to the next element, which is then internal customers or internal trust, sorry. So when we look internally in the organization, if there's trust in the organization, it can then flow to the outside. It flows to how we deliver services. It flows to how we communicate. It's typically that thing where if you sit in a restaurant and you hear two people talk about their job, people that have a trusting organization and that trust each other will typically be more positive in how they talk about their job. So it flows from the inside out. And what I'd like to do is use the iceberg model to show us, when it comes to building organizational trust, how do we start? Where do we start internally? So when we think of an iceberg, I know a lot of people typically would think Titanic. Yes, Titanic does come to mind, where they vastly underestimated what was below the surface. And personally, when I look at people and when I look at organizations, it's oftentimes the little bit that we see. It's the things that are visible, it's the actions, our body language, the words that we use, the behavior when we do certain things. That's the stuff that people see. So based on that, a lot of times people make a judgment call. So if we come back to consistently delivering on a quality service or quality product, that can be seen on the outside, but very rarely do we know what's going on underneath the surface. And it's the stuff that's underneath the surface, it's the stuff that's inside of us, that typically drives the actions to the outside. And when we look at organizations, it basically boils down to their purpose. I've spoken about this a few times in previous webinars, but I'm a firm believer that if people understand why the organization is doing what they're doing and they're aligned to that why, the actions flow from that, and the actions can be consistently in line with that. If I know why BDO does what it does, our why is people helping people achieve their dreams, I'm automatically aligned with that. So when I take care of customers or when I interact with people, I'm consistently asking questions around how can we help you? What are your dreams? How can we help you achieve those dreams? And if people understand it and buy into it, then from there, the actions will be aligned. I'm going to take a quick look at a video. It's a clip from Simon Sinek, part of his Start With Why video, that speaks to the importance of having a purpose and understanding that purpose.
Help you get there. Do you know the story of the two stone layers? So there's two stone layers, right? You go to the first one and say, how do you like your job? He says, yeah, I mean, I like my job. I've been working on this wall for as long as I can remember. The stones are heavy. The work is back-breaking. It's monotonous. I stand in the scorching hot sun all day, and I don't even know if I'm going to finish this wall in my lifetime. It's a job. It pays the bills. You go up to the second guy and say, how do you like your job? He says, I love my job. I'm building a cathedral. Sure, I've been building this wall for as long as I can remember. Sure, the stones are heavy and the work is back-breaking and I stand in the scorching hot sun all day and it's monotonous and I don't even know if I'm going to finish this wall in my lifetime, but I'm building a cathedral. What they do is exactly the same. This guy might even be a champion stone layer. The only difference is that only one of them knows why he shows up to work every day. And the guy who knows why does not see himself as any more or less important than the architect or the guy doing the stained glass windows or the landscaper. They are all contributing to building something that they believe in that's bigger than themselves. A leader is somebody who can put into words that which does not exist yet. The leader is the one who stands there and says in beautiful, crystal clear words, and he describes that cathedral that hasn't been built in words so clear that others can take that image and they can pass it on to others. Why are you working so hard? Because I believe in it. We're building a cathedral. What cathedral? Let me tell you. Are you describing your cathedral, or you're just telling people the wall that you're building?
Right. I found that it's quite a powerful message that he has there. Are you telling people the cathedral that you're building or just the wall? And it's so true. I know personally I experience it. If employees don't know why they're doing what they're doing, if they don't know where they fit into the bigger picture, it's very difficult to get them to really actively participate in what the organization is trying to achieve. Employees have a strong sense of why, perform their task with so much more enthusiasm and energy. It's really hard to feel enthusiastic about a job if we're not sure why the work that we're doing is needed. So I think for me, it rings very true in terms of if we understand that purpose, then from there, our actions will flow from it. So if I can go back to my iceberg, it really means that leaders who nurture the idea of having a common goal, a common purpose, getting everybody to work together, make employees feel that their work is meaningful. And this builds a resilient organization. If I understand what I'm doing, and especially in times of disruption, if I can kind of see where the organization is going and why we're doing what we're doing, or especially in times of change, I can imagine so many organizations have had to change rapidly from one week to the next. But if there's constant communication between the leaders and the organization, communication is absolutely key between the purpose and the action, and the purpose and the action, we can get people to flow along with us. The other thing that's under the surface, and I'm going to speak a little bit about this today as well, is the values. So that's the motives behind the purpose. So in BDO, yes, it's people helping people achieve their dreams, but it's because we value community. We value service, we value honesty, we value ethics. All these values drive our purpose and why it is that we do what we do. And then making sure that we have people who are aligned with that, it makes it so much easier to create that uniform actions at the top that everybody else sees. The last one then that I'm going to touch on is just beliefs. So beliefs here isn't necessarily our religious beliefs, but our beliefs in people, our beliefs in the world. If I believe that people in general are dishonest and they will lie to me, I'm going to treat them in a specific way. There's definitely going to be an influence on how I act towards them. But if I believe that people are trustworthy, that I can share with them, that I can be vulnerable with them, then it's going to change the way that we interact with each other. And this is now where I'm going to focus on how do we now create that internal trust? How can we foster a clear sense of purpose? What actions can we take? How do we communicate the decisions or the reasons for certain decisions that were taken? And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to look at the trust pyramid that's by Patrick Lencioni. So there's a whole book around it. He's got a website going. I'm going to take you step by step through the theory of it. We've designed some surveys in BDO that we can also help you to build this trust. And I'm going to take you through it step by step. So this is specifically looking at, everybody talks about trust. We talk about internal trust. We talk about purpose and values. what does it look like practically? What can we practically do to bring trust into the workplace? So then Tioni believed that working in a team can bring many benefits. However, there are obviously a lot of challenges that need to be addressed. So at the bottom of the pyramid, the foundation of it is trust. And trust is best defined as the willingness to be vulnerable to the actions of another party. If we think about the trust that it takes to marry someone, you're literally promising to spend the rest of your life with that person. That's very vulnerable, it's very courageous. And it's very brave, but there's this positive expectation of the intention of the person that we have that trusting relationship with. And that's why it's at the base of the pyramid, because very little progress can be made in gaining cohesiveness overall if there's not vulnerability-based trust. It's the key to building relationships that are required to be able to withstand even, the most difficult challenges that a team can face. I'd like to share a personal story here. When I worked in Nigeria for about 5 years, I left South Africa in 2004, and I was head of the risk management department for MTN. And I started the unit. There was about 6 people, and within the first couple of months, 3 of them I had to let go. They weren't really team players. And it created a lot of uneasiness within the team. So trust was very difficult. I'm obviously a different culture. I'm a different nationality from the Nigerians. And I started hearing these rumors, they weren't happy with the fact that I was getting an expat salary. They weren't happy that my accommodation was being paid for. All of these things were standard benefit across the line for expatriates in MTN. And so one day, I called them into my office and I said, what's the problem? So I laid my case and I said, I can sense that we're not working as a team. There's a few of us. It's a difficult job. Nobody really loves internal auditors and forensic auditors. So we really need to stick together. And then they were quite courageous and they told me, we're not really happy with the salary that you're getting. It's a lot more all of us are getting. We don't really know why you let these other people go. They were our friends. So I then decided to tell them exactly all my earnings. I put my salary on the table, my benefits that I got, the flights that we got, everything, all the benefits, all of it. And I made a calculation. I said to them, well, this is what I get every year. You have to remember that I am away from my family, so I have given up a significant amount of my own personal space and my own personal desires to be here. So it is tough. I don't have any friends, I don't have any family. It's really, really difficult. And I made them a deal and I said to them, give me a year. And if within a year you don't feel like I'm worth this salary, I'll resign. And they were happy with that. And then we started working together. We started having really open and honest communications, and they helped me to hire people, to grow the team. I could fully trust on them if we did forensic work, that they would do their utmost best. I could leave the office sometimes early to try and miss the traffic and know that they would work hard. So we really worked really hard on that trust relationship. Needless to say, within a year, I did not resign. They were really happy, but it takes a lot of courage. It could have backfired. And it took a lot of courage to be that vulnerable. But I found that in being that vulnerable, they realized that, I'm just another human being trying to do what is best for the organization. So that openness, it's really, really important. So the kind of things that we look at when we look at trust and vulnerability, some of the questions that we can ask is, do team members quickly and genuinely apologize to others when they've made a mistake, when they've done something damaging to the team? Oftentimes it takes us to be really brave to admit when we're wrong in something. I know in today's age, we all have to be politically correct, and there's so many times when something slips out when we don't even know about it. How quickly do we genuinely apologize if somebody does come to us and say, that thing you did, it really hurt me, what really hurt the team? The second thing we look then is, do team members openly admit their weaknesses and mistakes? So if somebody in the team asks me to do a particular task and I'm not that well skilled at it, do I say, you know what, I'm actually not so good in this skill. I don't really know how it works. I'm willing to learn, but please, if anybody else can help me, or if there's somebody else that's better at it than me, do they trust each other in the team enough to do this? The other thing is then, do team members share information of their personal lives, and are they comfortable to discuss them? I come back here to the values, because people who typically tend to share the same value system, they easily share information with each other. There's a common connector there. The difficulty is that the same values don't necessarily translate into the same actions. To give you an example, again, I go back to my life in West Africa. This time we're in Ghana. Now, I have the value of respect. I was raised Afrikaans, mom and dad. Very much, if you show respect, you look people in the eye, you shake their hand, firm handshake. That's how you show respect. So I went to Ghana, and now I want to show people that I respect them. And I met some of my team members' family, and I got up and I looked the father in the eye and I shook his hand firmly. Only later on to be told that, you know, that thing you did, that's not how we show respect in Ghana. And I was mortified. I valued the fact that they came to me and said, listen, you know, we really need to make you aware of this. To show respect, you pretty much don't look them in the eye. You only speak when spoken to. You take a handshake if it's given. And I learned. But what I loved was the fact that they could come to me and share that with me, because they knew that was my value base. Even though my actions didn't show it, I could then go and say, oh, thank you so much. I can now align my actions to be the same as yours culturally, to show that value of respect. So typically, yeah, people feel very comfortable to discuss their personal lives once that value base is aligned. So I'm going to quickly just go to our Q&A section, take a quick break to see if we've got any on that side. I think we've got a question from Anonymous. Okay, Anonymous is jumping the gun a bit. It says here, what do you say to people that feel that trust should be earned? Okay, that's actually on my next slide. So yes, there is this common belief, and I must say, when I started talking to people about this webinar on trust, a lot of them disagreed with me and said, no, trust has to be earned. I disagree wholeheartedly. I feel that trust is something you give, simply because for somebody to earn your trust, how do you measure that? You can't keep score. You know, is consistent behavior over 6 months enough? Is a year enough? Nobody can meet unspoken needs. So if I can't clearly verbalize what it would take for you to gain my trust, which most of us can't, it's more like a feeling and an emotion than physical behavior. I also don't think that people can be good enough for long enough. Everybody's going to fall short at some point in time. Earning trust is very much focused on me, and not focused on the other person. I also think that relationships and people and teams are messy, and it can get confusing. So I do think we give trust. I have a motto that says, I'd rather trust somebody and realize in 10 years time that maybe I shouldn't have, than not trust them and in 10 years time realized I actually should have trusted them. So we do expose ourselves. There is that fear that we'll get hurt. There is a fear that we'll be humiliated. There's a fear that we'll make a mistake. But I think the only way that people can start building trust is if somebody gives it. There is obviously, you know, if somebody keeps breaking your trust, we have a whole different conversation. But I don't think that people can earn trust from the bat. I think it needs to be given, and then it grows from there. So thank you very much for that question, Anonymous. I don't see any other questions. I'm just quickly checking here. Okay, I saw we had some connectivity issues. Yes, you'll notice earlier on in the webinar, I also kind of just looked around because I got a bit of a weird message, but that seems to have been resolved now. Okay, great. All right, so moving on then, the next block in the pyramid is conflict. So conflict is sometimes considered dangerous on a team because it can lead to hard feelings. However, if the team has that trusting relationships and the members feel secure enough to be honest and open with each other, conflict can be really constructive. In fact, it's actually critical to ensure that every viewpoint has been understood, it's taken into account. And I find that teams who don't have conflict, they typically tend to brush over issues that should really be discussed. So when the meeting is finished, everybody leaves and go, woof, you know, thank goodness we didn't discuss that difficult issue. It's very difficult to then move forward if that's not resolved, and it can also lead to poor decision making. So questions that we can ask then around conflict in tackling conflict is, are the team members passionate and unguarded in the discussions around their issues? You can clearly see in a meeting if people just sit back and, you know, they don't participate and are not really passionate about anything. Is there something underlying there that they're hiding or they don't want to speak about? Do people find meetings compelling and not boring? Yes. Compelling meetings mean that everybody, you know, went through the agenda, they prepared for it, they've got their action points, they know what they're going to say. It's not just an open-ended discussion that goes on for an hour and then everybody goes, okay, the hour's finished, you know, let's go. The last one is then during team meetings are the most important and oftentimes difficult issues tabled for to be resolved. So here comes that fear of confrontation, and then that unfortunately ensures that many aspects are not discussed. They sometimes are not even on the agenda. I've been in situations where I've wanted to put stuff on the agenda and people go, no, we'll just discuss that on the side if it gets there. And I'm like, no, we really need to put this on the agenda so people can come prepared, because it's a very sensitive topic. And I don't really want to just raise it there and bombard everybody, and then, you know, nobody kind of knows what to say. So when nobody expresses him or herself in the group, there could be an artificial harmony, and the problem is they're never really addressed. So that's the kind of conflict that we're talking about. I see we've got another question here from Bradley. Thank you very much. How do you confront your boss about the need for more expertise in the company when it might not be your place? You need to employ more individuals in the marketing and social. Whoa, that's a very good question. Marketing and social media divisions. Bradley, that's an excellent question. I think that the challenge is we are facing an environment where I take BDO, for example. You know, we're an audit and accounting firm and advisory services, and all of a sudden everybody has been thrust into digital. I think if there is a trusting relationship where we need to hire people because we do not have the expertise, I always go back to the research. Look at what our competitors are doing, you know, see if we're at least on par with them, if not better than them, and look at what our customers want. Sometimes customers might not necessarily want social media. It depends on what industry you're in. You know, I look, some of the schools, for example, has now gone on Facebook and social media, and I wonder what value is this adding for the parents? So I think really asking the question, what do our customers want? What do they need? If it is in an area where we lack the expertise, and we can show that our competitors are actually doing much better than we are, it makes for a very good point to then say, I've done the research, you know, our competitors are doing X, Y, Z, they're gaining market share because of what they're doing on social media or the skill set that we're lacking. We currently don't have the right skill sets in place. Maybe we can, you know, contract it out for 3 months until we hire somebody. And in those 3 months, be very sure to then track all the activity on social media so that you have a proper business case to go back with and say, you know what, we've proven it. We've attracted much more people on our website. This has led to increased revenue, or we're building awareness, because marketing doesn't always translate into money overnight. So I do think it needs to be part of a targeted campaign and a targeted strategy. You need to look at, like, what do our customers need? How do we talk to them? How can we better talk to them? And then lump it in with that. I hope that makes sense and that helps. But yes, it does mean that someone will have to go, you know, I can't do this. I really think we need somebody with the expertise skills to do it. You can offer to help to hire the person, or maybe free up a team member in your team to be available to go for training on it. Those are all ways in which you can help management to solve the problem if they don't necessarily want to recruit. It kind of brings me to the next point quite aptly, which is commitment. So this is the ability to obtain buy-in to something. You know, if I take Bradley's situation, if I don't buy into the suggestions around the table, it's very difficult for me to go to leave the meeting feeling like, okay, you know, we're all going to do this. But commitment here speaks to the fact that I feel like I'm being heard. So even if the suggestion that I made is not the one that's implemented, I at least feel like I've been heard, I've been questioned on it, people around the table have really taken it into consideration. So even if we end up with another solution, I'm still committed to eventually achieving that task. The questions that we look at here is, do team members know what their peers are working on and how they contribute to the collective good? You know, if I'm kind of sitting in a room and I don't know what Sandy next to me is doing all the time, but yet she's there and she's got a lot of opinions, it's difficult for me to kind of trust that and to buy into things when she has an idea. So when group members aren't involved in each other's work, there is a bit of a vagueness that prevails. The next one is, do team members leave meetings confident that their peers are completely committed to the decisions that were agreed on? And this is where I say, even if there was disagreement, so even if team members disagreed with it, they felt heard, they felt understood, they felt like time and care and attention was given to it, but they're willing to go with whatever was decided at the end of the day. And then at the end of the day, do meetings and discussions end with clear and specific resolutions to action? I always find also sometimes, and it's not just meetings, it could be emails as well, where you get an email and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? There's no clarity on it. I don't know how to buy into this thing if I don't know who's doing what or what I'm supposed to do. So make sure that there's a proper action plan afterwards, and everybody can then be committed to achieving those things. The next one we have then is accountability. Now, accountability speaks, yes, to the organization, but also to each other. It's typically something that we assign to individuals. So, you know, person A is responsible for this, person B is responsible for that. But this takes it more to a level of the team behavior and the attitude towards result. If a colleague, for example, often arrives late, are we accountable to each other? Is anybody willing to say, listen, my friend, you know, you really should start coming on time to meetings? Or if we have that colleague that just never wants to you know, partake in office events, if there's a birthday party or something like that and everybody gets excited and he just kind of like sits on the side, does anybody go and say, you know, you're really not contributing to team spirit and to what we're trying to create? So do we talk about these things, and are we accountable, and do we hold each other accountable to the greater team? The things that we look at here is, do the team members actively engage, especially on unproductive behaviors? You know, if I see my colleagues the whole time walking around the office having coffee, it's a little bit different now that we're working from home, but where there's unproductive behaviors, you know, can we take them up on it? Maybe they are overloaded, or maybe they just can't focus, maybe they're struggling with something, but do we actively engage in each other and hold each other accountable? Are team members deeply concerned about the prospect of letting down their peers? We oftentimes feel that, oh, I can't let my boss down. But how about the rest of the team? If I need to complete a project by X date because my other team members need to take it forward from there, when I realize I'm not going to make that date, does it worry me? Am I upset about it? Or I just go, oh, you know, they'll figure it out. What's my level of accountability to them, and how strongly am I motivated to make sure that everybody's happy? And then the last one is, do team members challenge one another about their plans and approaches? You know, if I see somebody doing something and I can see, okay, it's a bit of a waste of time, or there's a better way to do it, do we actively share this with each other, or do we just sit back and wait for them to fail, or wait for them to take too long to complete it at the end of the day and kind of go, oh, I knew, you know, that wasn't going to happen. So it's a tricky thing, but I think as long as everything is pronounced and clear, it's quite easy to establish then that accountability around in the office or at work. So trustworthiness, I love this. It's about being accountable. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be pronounced and exact. but it's I'm accountable for the person next to me. I might not produce the results as quickly, but I'm going to keep them informed because I care for them and I care for the part that they play in the team. The last section of the pyramid is then results. It can be incredibly frustrating if people are more focused on their own achievements rather than the team's achievements. A lot of times people will take, the shine for whatever they've done to contribute, but oftentimes, the team isn't accredited for it. And here the leader has a very important role. He kind of sets the intended results and he remains objective at all times. So obviously, if somebody in the team does perform really, really well, that can be highlighted, but it's all about the team effort. A group where the results don't come first, it's very difficult to achieve the objectives. If we're all seeking our own personal glory and our own personal fame, it's very difficult then for the group to achieve the results. Personal interest often takes precedence over the collective, so a person can either seek credit for their performance or for the whole as a group. And this is a lot of times where frustrations come into play, especially if you have back-end people, back-end office people who do a lot of the number crunching and things like that. And then you've got the marketing guys who makes it all glossy and fancy, and then eventually the sales guy goes out and he presents it. Yes, it might be the more shiny and more visible job, but everybody in the team played a part, and everybody should be accredited for doing their part. The things that we can look at here is, do team members willingly make sacrifices such as budget time, headcount for the good of the team? Here I think a lot about Brady's question, if we miss the expertise. So if we don't have the expertise, can I sacrifice a couple of evenings a week and upskill myself? Or can I maybe try and find somebody on my own? Can I sacrifice, maybe a member in my team to go and study a bit further to do it? Can I do the research on my own time to really sell this? So am I willing to make sacrifices for the good of the team? I know especially in, the disruptive times that we're in, people have been asked to work crazy hours. I know myself, I've got 2 kids at home and I happily work from 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning until about 9. Then I spend some time with them on the days that they don't go to school, and you put in the late nights because I love what I do. I love the organization. I want to do it for them. And I know a lot of us has been put in that position, and that's where if I don't understand what I'm doing and if I'm not passionate about my job, it's going to be very difficult for me to put my kids in a room and go, mom's going to have to go work now because I want to spend time with them. I love the fact that they're at home. So that's where purpose is incredibly important, to make sure that our people work for us, sacrifice for us, to really make sure the good of the organization comes first. The next one we have here is morale significantly affected by the failure of the team to achieve its goals. So do the team really suffer? Are we emotionally impacted by this? Because if we are, it speaks to that passion. I always joke, before I do these webinars, I'm extremely nervous. It's very difficult to speak to a blind audience that I can't see. I'm totally in the blind here. And then somebody once told me, it's good to be nervous because it shows that you care. So if we fail, do we really feel affected by it because we felt like we've let someone down and we've let our team members down? And then the last one is, how quickly do team members seek credit for their own contributions instead of accrediting all of the other contributions? So these are some of the questions that you can kind of use. You can take them back to your workplaces, you can take them back to your teams, and just kind of in the back of your mind say, well, how are we doing with trust? How are we doing with conflict? How can I give trust? How can I be more vulnerable and get people in turn to be more vulnerable than with me? So that's a little bit then about how we can work towards creating that internal trust environment, that internal purpose, really understanding why we're doing what we're doing, and especially create that resilience. We spoke of the knowledge sharing. If I have a team that trusts each other and they're vulnerable, they're willing to engage in conflict, they're willing to do the work, they're going to share the knowledge, they're going to find the solutions, they're going to help organizations go through these disruptive times, they're going to be the resilience that we need to move forward. And that's going to show up in their actions, it's going to show up on how they interact with customers. That passion is going to shine through, and in BDO's case, we want to make our customers feel safe. You know, we've got you, we've got this. We're still going to help you to achieve your dreams because we're working together on it. We're not just alone, you know, kind of figuring out what it is that we need to do, figuring out where we fit into this big wheel. So I hope that you enjoyed the session. Please note that there will be a recording of this on our website. So you'll find the link to the webinar on our website. I think there's also a survey for today's one, so if you please wouldn't mind going to fill out our survey on the webinar. And then if you'd like to get in touch with us on how to build trust in your teams or how to look at resilience in your organizations, albeit looking at data, systems and processes or trust, please feel free to give us a call. I've had some lovely WhatsApps, I've had some LinkedIn connections that have been great, so please feel free to give us a shout. I'm going to go now to our Q&A. To see if we've got anything else there. I don't see anything else. So if anybody has a question, okay, I see Justine has loaded the survey. So if you could please go online, it's a few minutes of your time just to let us know if you enjoyed the survey, if you've got any suggestions or comments for us. We're always trying to make sure that we meet our customers' needs and our clients' needs. And then please feel free to get in touch after the webinar if you need additional information or resources, or if you'd like to do the trust survey yourself for your teams. We're more than happy to help you out. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions here. Okay, no other questions for today. Okay, Londiwe, I don't know if you see any questions on your side. I think we're okay.
I think we're fine, Nadine.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your afternoons. Cheers.